Oh, welcome back to the second podcast of the Feminine Principle. From now on, I'm going to be referring to it just as feminine. Thank you for your messages. I read each one of them and pondered them a while. Was a question: why is a man that is talking about feminine principle? And that's a really good question, because I have been exploring this for a long time and now deeply appreciate this aspect of myself as a man that has enriched my life beyond what I can explain. It's been said that the Tao that can be told is not an eternal Tao, and this is very close to that. The feminine principle of feminine cannot be put to words, because it's not a symbol. It is a living entity. Same as Mother Earth is a living entity. It's not just like a ball of mud, being put together with rocks and liquids and all this chemistry. It's a living being, except who can see her? Who can see this living being? And this is what I'm going to be talking about today. It's like when we begin to connect to this feminine side of ourselves. So it's obvious that every person, whether it's a man or a woman, has this feminine principle, masculine principle. Between those two is a meeting place, which we call heart. When we come up with every possible idea how to survive this reality, someone will come to an end, because there will always be something missing. Because the mind is not supposed to be the seat of power. And so it's important to stop at some point and go like, what else is there? How can I get the full understanding so I can actually be completely at peace? Because when we're at peace, we don't think with our brains, we don't think upstairs. We begin to be rather than do, and we remember what's already in store for us. My experience is that God has placed in me everything that I already desire. But desire is that aspect that is more on a feminine side. And to be genuinely in touch with that aspect, the part of me that only feels, I had to do a lot of training just to get my mind around it, just to learn how to be truly present. I spent years and years running men's groups and training my mind with, let's say, Course in Miracles or some other modalities that help to sort out the thought processes, so there can be this little pause that's real. My mind just stops trying to figure things out and surrenders. It's been said that we're supposed to surrender our will to God. I says, no. We need to surrender to our own will, in which God has placed everything. The great Virgin Mary, that's the part of us that could not be put in the Bible. There's ideas that maybe some of this feminine stuff been taken out of the Bible. I don't think it's ever been put in. Because how would you explain it ever? And how dare I to sit here and even attempt to speak to this without some form of crucifixion that will come my way? Because, hey, this is not a daily subject that we really look deeply into in a busyness of this place, of this world. So yes, this is very daring, and one has to be really grounded in its own self to declare, hey, that Christ has been born, knowing that it's going to be speared down. I mean, look what happened to Jesus, He says, I'm the Holy Son of God, and what happened to him, hey? So he said, hey, don't do that. It's not the way to go. There are better ways to this. And definitely the most important one is where we surrender to our will. To surrender to our will, I'm going to be giving you some ideas of how I went through this opening to hear from her. Because she does not speak in the words. It's not the same words that mind uses to communicate. Feelings communicate through feeling. Closest to any expression on this planet for a will, for the feeling to express, is sound and movement. When you were born, what did you have? You had sound and you had movement. And that was the only avenues of the expression. Right? Then you got educated. Then you've seen an examples of how to use mind, how to feel love, how to feel mother's love, father's love. But the feelings, pure, genuine feelings, are not our daily bread here. Not very often. Often feelings are just ideas in the mind. How you feeling? And now comes the words. And that's not really how feelings express. I had many discussions on this, and they're like, yeah, but I have to get to it. Well, that's what I'm talking. There is the surrender, where I train my mind, and it does need training, to learn to step back and let the will speak. She has the most exquisite expression one can ever dream of. It's closer than your breath, one could say. It's so close in us. But it requires no effort. You can't dig it, you can't push it. You can't control it. The only thing which actually the problem is that we're already controlling it. It's over-controlled. It's actually like a prison down there. Yeah, we imprisoned our will, so she can't really help us. So here comes the first step to how to recover this will. First, it's just to realize that there she is, and is trying to reach us through pain, through sickness, through tension, through frustration. She's constantly trying to get in touch with us. It's been said that, God is hiding from us. And that's like, no, we're hiding from God by just hiding the will, His will. What needs to be addressed is that often we hear about the will like a willpower. We're not talking about that. We're actually talking about the will, which is the treasure, the inheritance that was given to us. Yeah, like the kingdom of heaven is within you. Have you found it? When you have, I guarantee that you bow down deeply and you were left speechless for days or weeks, with your mouth open going like, I can't believe my lucky stars that I've got to a place where the great she begins to communicate its treasures, It's exquisite gift. It's love that cannot be named or described, or even the greatest poets, they still just pointing the finger to something that she is. So first step is to realize, the second step is to change our attitude toward this part of ourselves that only feels. So learning how to sit and close your eyes and not just go into some kind of meditation, which I call medication, but simply learning to become receptive to what's below. And it's definitely below. At this time we are mainly functioning in a time and space continuum, which is not entirely real, but this is where most seeming life appearing that can be dislodged, and we then will have a much easier way to be reached by this pure feminine light. There are schools that are more the spirit schools that help us to get in touch with the spirit self. And they often deny body, deny emotions, deny feelings, just to have quick awakening. But like I said last time, the awakening is just the beginning. The mind awakens that it's not just the little thoughts and ideas, but there's a greater scheme of things that is available. So mind pops out of its bubble, and suddenly you just much larger in some way, like you feel that there is way more of you, and that your body is just a little tiny part of this exquisite, huge presence, right? When that presence awakens, it begins to look for the will. It begins to look for this feeling self. And it has to train itself to slow itself down, because it's a very high vibration, to slow itself down so it calms down in this exquisite presence, genuine masculine presence. Now reducing it into the human form, because this is where we find ourselves. And I'm sure you guys are flying in different dimensions, and you're aware of many aspects of creation. Yet in this particular series we are addressing the feminine, the will. Sophia has had many names, but to really get it across, one has to really learn how to step back and allow it to come back to its life. That is, as slow as it is, the fastest way that I have found. Instead of talking, making sounds, movement, put a bit of music on and do a little bit of dancing with your eyes closed, just to get a body movement, because that was the most original way of expressing for us. Even when we look at it as human beings, we're born, and then the mind came later, the programming came later. Being to speak when you were 1 or 2, yeah? But before that, it was just all like movement, sounds, feelings and emotions. Then came a programming of whoever you were surrounded by and affected by their own programming that happened to them when they were little. So the most primordial way to be is before mind was, before the thinking was programmed. And this is a very interesting subject, because somewhere in us, and I don't know to what extent you're aware of it, there is this anger, there is this rage, right, towards something. And most of it is that we somewhere deep down know that we were not taught properly, that this is not a way of creation, that we are somewhere making this world up. We're trying to figure out how to be, what to do, what's our deepest purpose, why are we here. Those questions still might be unanswered, unless you're sitting there and you're absolutely in your totality. There's nothing to discuss. Obviously, wouldn't be even listening to any talks, because you're told everything you needed to know. You already know your inheritance, and you have returned to creation. Now, creation, I'm not talking about making stuff up in this world. I'm talking about creation. Your learning stage is over. You realize you didn't have to ever need to learn anything, but you have. So that will need forgetting, that will need letting go, because creation does not require learning. You don't learn how to create. Creating is your natural inheritance. But who is the one who is creating, even in a human form? Father comes with a seed. There's the mother who begins to create a child. So same in this invisible realm. She is the birther of everything. Yeah. She's the birther of Christ. Why is that so? And why is Virgin Mary such a misunderstood concept? Yeah. Because it cannot be described. It cannot be so-called nailed to something. And whatever can be described is being overdone. The mind, So mind, when it's without this will, without this feeling self, it actually is a dysfunctional, because it's incomplete in itself. So when the mind trains and learns that it needs to step back and be informed by this will, by what? By changing its attitude towards her. Wouldn't that be nice if men changed their attitude towards women? Also, wouldn't it be nice if women change also their attitude towards men? Because what we have in this world at this point is something what I call a stalemate. No one's moving anywhere. Men are waiting for the feminine, to open up and touch her with this absolutely beautiful fragrance of openness, of divine light. But then women waiting for this man to become present and to be able to see them, to be able to see the core of their being. Man has a capacity to see a woman deeper than she can see herself, because he is a different quality. She can awaken him into a consciousness that he can't see, where he's locked up, because this other quality is the one that enlightens it. So we desperately need each other. But this journey is actually needing to happen on inside first. That is that each man and each woman has to realize it has its own polarity within. That the mind or the spirit is one aspect, the will is another. Those two, when finally polarizing again, they will begin to birth the heart, and that will then elevate they form, their body will become enlightened. Yeah, they will begin to vibrate in a speed of light, which is very physical experience. And if we live in a density that this earth is vibrating at this point, because we have very dense minds, right? This is going to be almost impossible to see and experience, because if the earth is dense, our bodies are dense. In early days, when spirits came to earth, it was not like this. The density of this planet wasn't as it is now. Things were very different. You might go, well, how do you know all this? So what happens when you begin to return to this feminine principle? She holds all the memory. She's like a hard drive in some way. It's a horrible comparison, but in a way it is, because everything is stored in there. She's like this unconditional acceptance that receives everything that's passing by around. And so when you begin to open up to her and allow her to release the unnecessary stuff she's been holding, she begins to return the memory of origins. And this is not the journey into past life or different civilizations, but it happens as an effect of this release. So if I start speaking to that, you will remember that that was our natural way of being. We were not supposed to be this slow. We had a chance to shape-shift, change forms, and a lot of our stories still talk about that. Fairy tales, they're actually not just fairy tales. They are actually events. That's how it used to be. So we are looking to go more into these more subtle realms of ourselves. And one of them is to begin to soften. Okay, so if we are too dense, what do we need to do? We'll go the other way. It's actually simpler than it sounds. So we go, you allow yourself to soften. Just a little bit. Just say yes. Because if you give it to your mind will go, well, what do you want from me? Why do I need to do this, right? We just say yes. Let's just soften a little bit. Let's just see what it was like before it all got this slow and dense and sickly in a way. Because the slower it vibrates, the less it can last. Live on light. Our daily bread is the light. When you live on light, you don't need bread. So you're sustained by the love of God. You're sustained by these subtle realms that are like the 12 rays of God. Again, this is not about imagining it. It's about feeling it. So you allow yourself to soften. Soften a bit more. And a bit more. Just say yes. I'm going there. I'm going to find out what it's like to feel the way it used to be when the feminine was still available. Softening more. And every time you let yourself soften, you will feel a slight shift into less dense form of yourself. But when you get there, I'd like you to let that go and just allow it to be even softer and more subtler. You will find that your thoughts diminish. Because when you feel, you disengage automatically your thinking mechanism, which at this point mostly creates density rather than fluidity, flow, light, radiance. So you just keep softening, falling into your own radiant self. This could be tough for men, but it's absolutely doable. It's very delightful. Because man, you do it all the time, you know. You go into nature, you have a little smoke, you have a beer here and there, a little drink. No. You jump in the water. Why? Because it's what reminds you of that quality. You come out and you go like, oh, that was so good. That's it. The feminine touched you. Even on a kind of the dense levels of association. So you just keep going. Ladies, I bet you love your bath, you know, the time is just like in the water without bubbles and silence, couple of candles. What does that do? Brings you back into your more subtle realms of who you are. All of that is already there. It's not that you are learning something new, just simply remembering another way of being, where you begin to return yourself, the part of you that does not think at all. It only feels. And you just step back and let it feel more. Yeah? You're not trying, there's no effort. Actually, creation comes when we learn how to fully step back and disengage any form of effort. And if you really tune in, you will see that you've been going down, down, down. People often tell me, it's like, wow, I was doing this, I felt like I was turning into a lake. I was turning into a fresh spring of water. And my mind stopped. It's endless story making, worrying. And just keep going. Just allow yourself to keep going. There's nothing to fear. You're actually returning to your natural inheritance, what belongs to you already. And if you did allow yourself to surrender to this guidance, you must have experienced some subtle realms of who you are. And that's just the beginning. We're going through the dense forms, to the periphery of the will, to the thick layer. And the best way to go through a thick layer is to go through it by softening. The more you allow this feeling realm to come in, the more you realize that it actually expands out of you. And it's connected to everything that is. And the more you allow yourself to go, the more you realize that you are in unity with all there is. And then the next step is to see that what takes you out of this place. What takes this away from us? And you might be feeling quite deep. And this is just the beginning. Because once we tune into this, there's like a door opens. You know, they talk about door to heaven. This is the one. But this is as far as you can come alone. You come to this door, and at some point, if you can remain there long enough, the door will open and you will be taken and return home completely. And so this is why I want to talk about this feminine principle, because she's the one who is going to take us home. However, the part of us that thinks needs to have little training, little understandings of where it's going, because it is scared, because it is separate. And when you separate, you don't have all of yourself with you. And when you don't have all of yourself with you, you weaken yourself in your own eyes. And if that happened, you will have fear. You might even have fear of wholeness, fear of God, fear of feminine. A lot of men are scared of feminine. And a lot of women are terrified of this masculine. So, how to find balance between the two? You might say, well, now you're really kidding me, because, hey, we've been trying to figure out this masculine, feminine, man-woman thing for a long time. How to find the connection, the deep, deep connection again that we also desire. Just like this, we want to create a safe environment. Men are no longer safe with women. Women are not feeling very safe with men. So this is where we need to begin. But as I said before, where does it need to happen is within. Like, how safe do you actually feel just in your own body? Really, and now more honesty is required to get the answers to these questions. How safe do you really feel just in your own field, with your own mind? Because mind of it on its own, without the feeling, without the will, is not really a safe agent. It's not something you can 100% rely on, because it's separate from its own source, from its own polarity. So how safe are you with this part of your mind? But also, how safe is your mind with this feeling emotional self? And this could be a great discovery. And what I use for that, I use out of 10. How safe am I feeling as I am with myself, with my emotions, or with my mind? And you might realize that it's not really 10. If it is, bless your heart, you're balanced. If you can remain in that state of being 10 out of 10, you're flying. You must be. Yeah. If you're not flying, somewhere there's a tiny little denial. And what you think, like, mind can really quickly convince itself, yes, it's all love, it's all one, we are one forever, God, separation has never occurred. Go ahead, you can think that. But is it fully felt on all the levels of your being? Is it on a feeling level as well? Is it on a heart level? And does your body feel the same? Are you radiating health and have whatsoever no fear of anything, any disease or any sickness to take this away from you, not only in you, but in your relations, your friends and your partners. Yeah. So if we're really honest, we'll see that we are not 100% safe, because we never know what's going to come. You go to see a doctor and they say, well, we're sorry to say. And you say, hey, I was this balanced person who was meditating 2 hours a day, and here it is. And this is not to frighten you, this is just to be honest. Like, how safe is it? And then ask good questions like, what do I need to do or be for me to feel perfectly safe in myself? And now you're asking really good questions, and you might get really good answers, because something inside you will begin to inform you what it needs for it to be in its full expression. You can do the same thing with your partner or with your friends. Like, hey, how safe are you with me out of 10? Look, And first they say, oh, I feel perfectly safe. It's like, really? Like on every level. And then you ask that second question, and they will drop deeper and realize that on a deep feeling level, there might be little barriers. These barriers, what they do, they make the communication link between the souls a little bit narrower, and the direct communication between us is impossible. And because God is creation, and within the creations is billions and billions, trillions, unnumerable or impossible to count amount of souls that create that whole oneness. And if you in separation with your brother, or you feel unsafe, you are not in a full communication. So the minute you create full communication within yourself, you begin to create communication with all those that are around you. It cannot be not so. Yeah? The minute you are fully safe, fully trusting, fully open, fully present, you cannot but enter into communion. That is, when you're willing to hide nothing, you will not only enter into this exquisite communion and communication with everything around you, the holy, constant state of joining on the deepest level you ever desired to be met. And it just keeps going and keeps going until we're either dishonest or incapable of expressing what's really going on for us. And then we close this channel, we narrow it down, and in that we lose the connection to creation, to all the souls that God created, to reduce it to a statement. Obviously, I'm vastly limited by not only the English language, but my own barrier of not being born in English-speaking country. And I came to Australia when I was 23, so obviously I have a Slovakian accent. It was suggested that I make myself some points so I speak faster, but I am feeling into the right words to emerge now rather than go in some kind of prepared form. It's because the feminine doesn't work that way. Feminine works the other way as well. So to find a balance between the two, this is like I showed you that exercise with softening. There's another one that I warmly recommend to anyone, particularly a person who speaks fast, is to learn how to speak very slowly. Because when you begin to speak slowly, your feeling self has a chance to enter into this communication. And then you're not only transferring words, but you're actually oozing a feeling sensation that touches the other ones or the people who you're with. It touches their feeling self. They go like, oh, there we are. We're connecting. Because that is the part of us. If we just have our thoughts to connect, then we have to come up with our belief systems. And if my belief system is slightly different, we're not going to meet. We're going to feel separate somewhere. But that's not the right thing to connect to in the right way. And it's not, I don't mean the right, this is the right way. No, I'm saying more like natural way of connecting is way more through the feeling self. One has to be vulnerable and have a capacity to open our feeling self. Now comes a crucial point. When we begin to open up this feeling self, we're going to find that there are negative feelings and positive feelings. And this should be the next step to really look into, because the positive feelings we want to open and share, and negative maybe not so much. But who made negative feelings? Who made positive feelings? Yeah, all of this has been made by ego mind. And in a feeling realm, there is no such thing, because all feelings are negative. Yeah, feeling realm is a negative realm. And because of this name called negative, there's somewhere an undercurrent of undesirable. And yet, it's not negative as not good. It's just as a magnetic quality. And we know from the electromagnetic field that electro is positive, electro, and magnetic is negative. So thoughts are electro and feelings are magnetic. And like I said, you can't start a car without positive and negative. So you can't really do anything without it. You would die if you didn't have this electromagnetic field working within you. Your thoughts would not be ignited. So we have to look at this next step, and it's just like, why do we hide negative feelings? You know, those things that you can't really express to your friends because you're afraid you're gonna hurt their feelings, right? So this can be sorted by making a deep connection with our so-called negative feelings in ourselves. Now let me talk a little bit about them, because here comes the beautiful story of Princess and the Frog. Because the mind thinks it's a princess, you know? And the way the mind sees feelings, she sees them as a frog. Some as something ugly or dark or undesirable, something to hide, something to show I don't have this. I will have my positive attitude. Well, then you're denying something in you. So how about we follow that story, and it comes a point where the princess kisses the frog, and what does the frog turns into? Exactly. And here we go. That's the healing attitude. Yeah, you had to kind of force yourself to look at this ugly thing and not only to accept it but to kiss it. So negative feeling comes and our attitude is like, oh no. Yeah, like say shame comes up, or some form of a vulnerable expression. And what do? We cover over it. However, it is when you're willing to hide nothing. See, you don't have to really do much except be willing to not hide it. And say, you know what? I have this horrible negative feeling right now. It's horrible because I made it horrible. And this is an awakening. And you realize that all the negative feelings have been made that way by rejection. And nobody else's rejection except your own. So you have these negative feelings and you're not in a full embrace and full love with them. You made them to look that way. In most cases, negative feelings are like big bruise down there. And looks ugly, so we go like, oof, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But guess what? Who made it? Who made it to be like that? Now we can blame parents, we can blame society, we can blame the patriarchal, that's a really popular one, right? But it's not. It was you. You have your own feelings, they're no one else's. And your relationship to them is your relationship to them. But there is another side to it. Because of your relationship to them, they have a relationship to you. Because you clearly have an aspect of you that thinks, and then you have an aspect of you that feels. And it's here where the separation is. When you separate from these aspects of you, you divide yourself into two, and that's how you make duality. And in that separation, you are going to feel like you have a separation, you're separated from God. However, repair this apparent separation within yourself and you remember God. Why? Because you can only remember God in your wholeness. And in your wholeness, you no longer have separate feelings. And when you don't have separate feelings, you don't have outside you separate entities that seemingly trigger these feelings in you. Because who is that to trigger anything if you're in oneness with yourself? You can't be attacked. You can't be anything. They can try, but there is nothing in you that triggers it, and you virtually begin to slowly, you stop magnetizing these characters in your movie to trigger you. There's nothing there in you to be triggered because you've embraced everything in you. And that which has been embraced is also embraced the one that was embracing. So you fall in love with you. It's been said, love yourself. Well, who is the you who is going to love the you? Right? So we clearly have these two qualities in us. They're supposed to be in unity, but if they are not, they're in duality. And so it seems like there is a mind that thinks, and there is a part of you that is a feeling self that feels. And it's this particular separation that needs awareness. When you come to the end of that journey, you'll realize you were never really separate. It was only appearing that way. that the dark clouds or the can of worms that seem to be living somewhere down there, it was all and forever will be connected and one. Before I say another thing, I will let you off the hook and this talk on the unity and how to reconnect with our basic tenet of creation. And depends on your responses. I'm happy to then move to the third stage, where we're going to see how we can completely unite the self with the self. Yeah, the thinking part of ourselves, the presence, with this exquisite feminine side. And maybe we could address a little bit more how to live more in a unity with the feminine, masculine principles in people, so men, women, and then how to unite deeper with my close companions, and then expand it and extend it further until we really do see the face of Christ in all our brothers and sisters. Until we see the face of Christ in all our brothers and sisters and friends and even enemies. Yeah? Because every living being has a heart, and that is never not being so. So the heart is there, but if there is this split between this masculine and feminine, the heart is actually not fully born. So we have this inner child that's not happy, and we're trying to supply this child with myriads of things. It will never be happy. Why? Because it's missing the mama and a papa, which is the masculine and feminine within. When that returns, when we forgive, particularly our parents, yeah, when a man forgives his mother, and when a woman forgives the father aspect, yeah, there will be unity within. And this child, instead of being this unhappy little kid, or basically a gaping hole instead, will have and undergo this birth of Christ in us, which is the second coming. The second coming is you and nothing else. And this second coming will then ignite our physical vibration to our new way of being. Okay, so on that note, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next podcast. Thank you.